This is my grandmother, and she is amazing. And we're going to be talking to her today about racism in California. It's a commonly held idea that California is this utopian state where married and actors can become our governor. So we're doing this oral history project today to kind of dispel the myth that everything is peaches and cream in our state. And we do have certain struggles that have gotten better over the years, but at one point did cause a significant issue for minorities. So I want to start with, can you give us some background about where you were born and when?
I was born in San Francisco, 1950, in the area of Hunters Point.
Okay. And in that area, can you kind of give us some idea of what the population was like what type of community was, what type of people were in that area?
Well, population was, I would say, 99% black. Um, it was, although I lived in the house, we lived right next to the projects. So that's where I always played at, my friends were at.
Can you tell us about what the Navy base diversity looked like?
Oh, on the Navy base, it was well, typical. You had the white sailors, you had the black sailors. A lot of, from my understanding, I was told through my parents and my grandmother, a lot of people came from the south to work on the Navy base or to work at Richmond. Is it Richmond Army Base, Oakland Army Base, and they came from the south. This where the jobs were.
Mm-hmm.
The jobs were. I even worked on the naval base in high school just for the summer in 1965. They
Okay.
had a program that helped youth to get jobs for the summer worked at.
And through that program and through that job, what did you see on a day to day?
Well, I was 15 at the time when I worked there. And like I said, it was diverse. It was diverse. You can always tell when a ship came in because you would see the sailors catching the bus going downtown or wherever they was going sightseeing, and it was mixed. Black and white. You had to be in the service in the Navy to get on there or work on that the Navy base. Now, if you're not talking about not the shipyard, but out in our area, the area that I lived in, it was mostly black. You it was mostly black. Um, it was just all on the hill was projects, and then Double Rock was further down, and it was projects down there that was mainly blacks. And it was now if you go down on Third Street, on the other side of Third Street, they considered that the Bayview district, and anywhere on Third Street, it was basically like its own I guess you could call it downtown, but it wasn't downtown. We had meat markets, we had supermarkets, we had a shoe store, we had a furniture store, we had three banks: Bank America, Wells Fargo, and Bayview Bank. We had a movie theater, the Bayview movie theater. We had everything within our reach. Yeah, matter of fact, yeah. And we remember the riots in Watts. And then they had small riots in the city. And at one point, the National Guard came up 3rd Street. And we stayed on the hill so we could look down the hill to 3rd Street, part of 3rd Street. And we could see the National Guards. They had their rifles and everything, and they were marching. And, they were there literally to stop the riots. It seemed like at no cost because We had never had anything like that that I know of in the city that was so close to home. So, I knew of the ride in Watts because of the television, seen it on the news, but but as for really no, I can't really remember what it was about now, but like I said, there was some rioting in the city, and so they called out the National Guards for that. And I remember they were in our neighborhood because a bunch of us kids at the time were in high school, and we could see the National Guard on Third Street with their rifles, trying to stop people. But our area wasn't one where they set fires. Oh, okay, they set fires too. You know, so well, your great grandmother was from Texas, so even when we used to go to Texas every summer as little kids, we'd hop on the Greyhound bus, or we even took a train ride and went to Texas. And on the bus, I remember we had to ride in the back of the bus, and I remember going down there, and I can't remember. It was in the 60s, maybe about 63, 64, 65 in that or my cousins, we were going to the movies, and me not being used to having to go sit in the balcony, we could go sit where we wanted to in our neighborhood show. But I remember asking my cousins, why we have to go upstairs? They said we couldn't sit downstairs. We had to go upstairs. There were certain places in the city of Beaumont that you couldn't go in because you were uh, you were a different color, you know. So there was discrimination in a lot of places, even in the city, you know. Just like we used to like to go, my father would take us to go look at the Christmas trees during Christmas time at the bigger houses, but you could get followed by a police for doing that. And I remember in the 80s, we even went to LA, and we were driving around up in like Beverly Hills in the Ritzy area. We were followed in our car because we were, I want to say, because we were black. And they followed us when we got in. They followed us as we just drove around looking at the different houses. And they followed us till we left out of that area. So it's better. It might be better. It might be hidden. Also, a lot of stuff is hidden. That that they don't want you to think everything is cool and everything. California is friendly. Maybe for the most part it is, but there is still some racism. I mean, look what they did to them. They brought us over as slaves. They put the Japanese people in internment camps. Um, they moved the Indians into reservations. This is the Indians' land. They were here first. They were here first. So where did we came over by no fault of our own? We were brought over here. The Indians were here when the Pilgrims came. The white people came over from, my understanding, Europe. So who's the immigrant? You know, who is the immigrant? So, mhm. So they claim everything. Now, don't get me wrong. I had some, as they say, I had some good white friends. So, The white friends I have, I truly believe, we're friends and we laugh and we discuss this at work. And everybody had their own opinion. I have my own opinion. So if we go back in the family tree, you might see a few white people that we're relatives with, you know, and like for on my mother's side, your great grandmother, she is of Creole descent. My grandmother, her mother, and my great grandmother, my mother's grandmother, my great grandmother could speak French. So they spoke French when they didn't want you to understand what they were talking about. You best believe she would sit on her porch with her corncob pipe, literally, and speak French to her friends, the ones that could speak it. I asked my mother one time if she knew how to speak. She said no. You know, that's why I say in every. I don't think at this point there's too much black pure blood. It's mixed. It's mixed, and that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with anybody race, as long as we can all get along. Well, I don't want people to think, or I don't want anybody to think that I'm a racist or anything. But this is just how it is. I went to a school that had a little bit of everything. Portuguese. This is in our neighborhood. Portuguese, Chinese, Latinos, just everything. So diversity was in our neighborhood once you went down the hill to the Bayview sort of like side. But in the Hunters Point side, it was a minority. It was black. So to me, I had the best of both worlds. I had Chinese friends that I could go play with that were neighbors. I had blacks I could go play with. So I had a lot of diversity that I grew up in, and um, you know, so like I say, I don't have no issue with other people, longer they don't have no issue with me.